Hello, everyone. Welcome on board Flight 17 of Clandestine International Airlines. We've departed Lhasa, where it's 39 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. We are currently just about reaching our cruising altitude of 32,000 feet on our way to Shambhala International Airport at an undisclosed location deep within the Himalayan or possibly Himalayan mountains. And anyone who is listening might want to correct us on that. We're not quite sure of the pronunciation. I am always happy to stand corrected on these things, so please comment if you have a comment to make about that. Let's see, we're all right. Everything looks good. I don't think there's too much in the way of turbulence ahead, although one never knows. I'm going to be flying today with our co-pilot, Roger Hansen. He's also our electronics warfare officer. And I'm going to be turning off the seatbelt light and turning on the smoking lamp. The smoking lamp is lit. Smoke them if you got them. And I am now going to switch on the Otto Matic pilot. And here we are. How are you today, Roger?
I am doing great. Thank you for asking.
Good, good. I hope your weather has improved.
Oh, yeah, it's actually really nice. I'm able to go outside and sit at outside without my jacket on. So it's a nice
Wow.
day. It's really a
We are
nice
not
day.
You're not nearly there in parts of the country I've been living in lately. So it's nice to know that somebody is experiencing some warm weather. We're currently having an ice storm. Freezing rain and stuff is coming down. But we don't have to worry about that 32,000 feet above sea level because we're cruising along. Weather is a funny thing, though. There's that story of the butterfly, perhaps even an obsidian winged one that's never been specified, but how a butterfly can flap its wings in one part of the planet and might cause a rainstorm on the other side of the globe. And this has to do with how interconnected everything is. And this brings us to what I was going to talk a little bit about today, dependent co-arising or dependent origination. And Roger, we were talking about this the other night. You were bringing it up. That whole idea that when this happens, that happens.
Yeah,
And the occurrence of this causes the occurrence of that, and how the cessation of this causes the cessation of that. And, when we look at dependent origination, you can read there like 12 steps, and it seems really complicated because he's going on to specific things. Ignorance leads to this, and this leads to that. You have senses, you have sensory contact. Once you have sensory contact, you have cravings. Once you crave, you cling. It's all very specific. But this other idea that when this is, that is, from the arising of this comes the arising of that. When this isn't, that isn't, and from the stopping of this comes the stopping of that. This is a more good general way to look at it, and in a certain sense, it's kind of obvious. As so much Buddhism is, once Westerners started reading it, they're like, "What? These are the secret teachings?" It seems so obvious. It seems so simple. A lot of Buddhism, I think, is very simple, but it is very hard to put into practice. Whether that practice is our outward physical actions, or our practice has to do with our mental attitudes, our mental conversation, the way we talk to ourselves, and simply the way we frame everything. But it sounds really, really remarkably simple. But when you think about it, these statements have to do with two aspects of this interconnectedness. When the Buddha said, "When this is, that is," he's saying how very often when something happens, you have an immediate result. There's an immediate, and an example that's often used is if you take your finger and you take and touch something very hot, like a hot stove, or put it into a fire, that will immediately cause pain. And if you immediately pull the hand out, as we usually do, the pain will stop. Although it might be a bit sore, the burning itself stops. His other statements about how from the arising of this comes the arising of that, and from the stopping of this comes the stopping of that, that's talking about something different. That's another, these are causal principles. This is causality we're talking here. And this is this has to do with time. So that you've got a connection between events over time, and you've got connections between events in the present moment, and these two principles intersect. So you've always got the moment influencing the moment, and you've got the past influencing the moment. And it's very, when you say this, that, we're speaking linearly. Our language is restricted to sequential statements. But this arising, this not only, spontaneously, not only this immediate arising, but this arising over time is happening with every single thing that we experience all the time, and also all the things that we don't experience all the time. So it's an amazingly convoluted sort of pattern of interaction. But one aspect of it that Buddhism has always worked with has to do with the idea of scale invariance, they call it in chaos theory. Basically, that which is on a small scale is repeated on a larger scale. And this is fractals, right? So in Buddhism, when, for example, they talk about rebirth, being one, that you are one being and then you become another being. This is something we observe in ourselves every day. We're constantly taking on new identities. We take on an identity when we go into work. When we leave work, that identity goes away, and after work, we go to meet some of our friends to go fishing or play music or do another activity like that, a recreational activity. Another self takes birth. And this self has nothing or very little to do with the self that was previously working in an office, or perhaps working on an oil rig, or doing whatever their job is, where you have to have all of this incredible, complete mindset that you put yourself into, especially if you're doing a complicated task. Then boom, you go to that. So this is what we observe in our everyday life, that the mind does this. The extrapolation is that this also happens when the physical body goes. The mind keeps going on. And this happens from moment to moment and in time. So that we see that in a small amount of time, we can get a hint at a larger amount of time. We can have an understanding of larger things. It's like the old thing about how if there are spiritual beings that are more advanced than me, God, if you want us to talk about God, although that's very far away, I can't understand God. I can't say anything about God that isn't a lie, because the moment I use human language, I'm going to be limiting God. I'm not going to be able to convey God's attributes accurately. The only thing I can do accurately, perhaps, is say what God is not. Although you can even argue about that. But so I can say, though, I am to God something that's beyond my understanding, as my cat is to me, or in sense of the ultimate God, as this amoeba is to me. I can understand that relationship I have with a being on the, if you'll forgive the expression, someone lower down on the chain of being, if you like. And that gives me some inkling of what my relationship is to a being on a higher chain, higher on the chain of being than I. So we can use the things that we can understand to try to have an understanding of what we can't understand. We can't understand it, but we can at least understand a way of understanding, if that makes any sort of sense. And this is all we can do as limited beings. But that was not originally what I was going to talk about. Oh,
It was good stuff though,
It is. It is.
because the thing I've been finding out is they have a name for it. It's the chains of what is it, the 12 chains of something.
Oh, the dependent origination. Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's actually pretty interesting. And like every time I hear you talking, you're always talking about the Four Noble Truths. You know, and that really sticks out to me because of um, when it comes to this type of topics, they say that it's not really a lack of information, but it's like a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of reality, specifically ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. Then you have impermanence, which is anicca, and
Yeah.
then there's also the non-existence of permanent, which is the independent self. You know, and I know we were talking about maybe getting into talking about the self too. Um,
Yes. That's
and
that's that's a wonderful can of worms to open up. People have been arguing about that for a long time.
yeah,
Well,
well,
the Four Noble Truths are where we start from. Well, Roger, I think I'm getting a signal from Shambhala International Airport, so I think we're going to be starting our approach pattern. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to turn off smoking lamps. Stewards will be by to collect rolling papers, hash pipes, or anything else you might have. The seatbelt light is now lit. This is where sound effects could do a little. And please return your seat to an upright position. We're making our approach to Shambhala International Airport at an undisclosed location in either the Himalayan or Himalayan mountains. The weather there is, as always, perfect because it's a large underground city leading to the secret caverns of the inner hidden hollow earth. But that's another story for another show. I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to listen, and thank especially people that are still there after hearing the beginning of this and they're still with us. But before we go, we should be sharing our socials. Roger, why don't you start with that and tell people how they can contact you, the great Roger Hansen?
if you want to contact me, you can find my community on Teams. It's Rogers Hangout. You can also find Rogers Hangout on Element Matrix. Besides those, I do have the wonderful World of Weirdness, which is on Discord. You can find me there as well. Um, Now, when it comes to platforms, the only two that I go to is X Roger Hansen at ROGLOL1973, and mine's at Roger underscore Hansen. Getting better at that.
You are. You are. And of course, you can take a look at some of my thoughts and ideas at my website, navakavada.org. That's Navakavada. It's spelled just like it sounds. We also have Navakavada on YouTube, and there's also a BitChute channel. You can find me on minds.com, Otto X. And also, you might just run into me down at the corner. You never know.
Okay, and before you go, let me say, Tiny Baby Kangaroo said that she could hear us whenever we went off, but we were back. So she confirmed that the audio and everything was straightened out before.
Excellent.
So
Thank you, Tiny Baby Kangaroo. We're going to give you part producer credits for this one.
yes, we will.
Put that in the credit. All right. Well, we're beginning our final descent. I see the doors are opening on the side of the mountain. And yeah, so I'm going to sign off now. Thanks, everyone, for being part of our show. Looking forward to having you back next week on Tuesday. And until then, peace all. Peace.